Jury deliberations continue for a second day in the trial of Sean Diddy Combs. He is charged with racketeering and sex trafficking. The members of the jury deliberated for 5.5 hours yesterday. And during that session, jurors sent a note about concerns over a juror's failure to follow the judge's instructions. Today, the jury requested transcripts from several key witnesses. Joining us once again with more analysis is criminal defense attorney Jeremy Saland. Jeremy, good to see you. Let's start first with those concerns over that juror. How common is something like this? What do you make of this note from the jury to the judge?
Yeah, that's concerning right out of the gate, because you'd hope and like to believe that they're cooperative and working together and following the law at the outset. It's a concerning thing, but it seems as if it may have been rectified because the court proceeded. And the question, I think, was there's a difference between cannot because they're unable or incapable of doing so, and cannot because they won't do so. But again, it seems like it's moved forward, though I will add in the back of my mind, if I'm the defense, that's a win because all you need is one to get that hung jury, and that kills the entire case for a mistrial.
And let's talk about the requesting of the transcripts and also just the amount of time so far that these jurors have been deliberating. Does that tell you anything about where the jury may be headed?
It's way too early. This is a really complicated case, and that's why, in part, the prosecution, if you recall, took some away of those underlying or predicate acts for the RICO, so that the jury wouldn't be confused and be overburdened. It is way too early, and I would expect them to ask these questions and want these answers, because conspiracy to commit RICO is not something that we can just say, oh, it's an assault. He struck her allegedly on X date, and we can look at the evidence and make a conclusion. It takes a lot more time and effort. Not surprised, and I would be shocked if they had an answer today, one way or another.
I also want to talk about the defense's strategy, not calling a witness up, but, kind of making some jokes and really going in on those closing arguments. What do you make of the strategy there? Do you think they're feeling confident as the jury deliberates?
You never feel overly confident one way or another. You think may have a great case and it doesn't go your way, or alternatively, you think something and the jury does something different. So, you have to work with what you have. And part of this defense has been you admit what you can't deny and you deny what you can't admit. Meaning you can't run away from the Intercontinental Hotel. You can't run away from certain evidence that came out that was, really damning, that there was corroboration for. But the way you spin it and the way you share it, and I think, or respond to it, part of me, and I think Mark Agnifilo did a good job with what he had, even if he did not present his own evidence, meaning witnesses and testimony in his defense of his client. But he had to work with what he had, and not putting Sean Combs on was probably the right move.
And I mean, also, how crucial are the text messages going to be, and how much of a problem, I guess I should ask, is that going to be for the prosecution? Because in a lot of these texts between Cassie and Jane, using this name Jane, there's consent in these text messages.
Again, a great point you're raising, Shannon. And one of the things the prosecution did in their initial letter to the court and made sure it was part of the instruction, this doesn't have to be RICO, this doesn't be sex trafficking. Any person, man or woman, can consent at time one, not consent at time two, and then going back and forth. Consent at one point does not mean consent in perpetuity. So I think it was something that was important to bring out by the prosecution, though the defense is saying, look, here's proof that she consented. Here's proof that she did things because she wanted to, meaning both, actually, Jane and Cassie. But it goes back to, even if true, you can still not consent and withdraw that consent at a different time. And all you need is one to get that force, fraud, or coercion.
And
sex trafficking.
Depending on what happens here, there has been discussion of a possible pardon. Of course, we don't know if that is going to happen. But the president has been asked about, whether or not he would look into it. He has suggested that he would. Again, we'll see what happens with this verdict. But do you anticipate perhaps something like that happening or being considered?
If there's a conviction, I guess this is the big, beautiful pardon as opposed to the big, beautiful bill we're dealing with now. It would be really appalling, as I think some of the pardons we have seen have been. Certainly that's my subjective view. But if a jury of his peers, meaning Sean Combs' peers, convicts him, while I recognize that Donald Trump may have a grudge for Manhattan and Southern District jurors, on the merits, if there's a conviction, then it should stay, barring some sort of successful appeal. I see no reason why, on its face, this would be something that Donald Trump should pardon.
Okay. Jeremy, thanks for your analysis. We'll talk soon.
My pleasure.